Welcome to the Get to Know Memphis First United Methodist podcast. I am your host, Thomas First, and I will be interviewing people from our congregation so that through great stories, laughter, and tales of the experience of the God who is an active agent in our world, we can get to know one another. Welcome to the Get to Know Memphis First podcast. Glad that you are joining us today. As always, I'm your host, Tom First, and I am excited to be interviewing my friend Vicki Caryiannis today. Vicki has been the church council chair of our congregation, I think the entire time that I've been here, and Bluff City joined to First Methodist. And so, a very pivotal person, but also super charismatic person, as you all might have seen the last few weeks as she's been our liturgist on the Sunday morning service. So welcome, Vicki. Glad that you're here.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So I have a question before I get to the questions. Is Caryiannis Greek?
It is. It's a married name, though. So
Oh,
even though you can't tell, I'm a little Italian, but I married into that name. But to me, it's just all olives and I just kind of all the same. Goes together.
gotcha. Yes, I don't know that I've ever met another Caryiannis, but I was like, that sounds very Greek. So what
Yeah,
was
only
what
about three or four of us. Once you know us, you know us. They're in the
oh,
city.
okay. What was your unmarried name?
Vann. Yeah.
Vann.
Yeah.
That
So I
doesn't
went
sound
from the
very
end of the
Italian to
alphabet
me.
to the beginning. It's great.
That doesn't sound very Italian to me.
I know. That's another podcast.
Okay. Ricky, I like to start off our time together by asking people a question about like some of their memories. And this can go back to childhood or it can be, just whenever. But do you remember the first time or really the first person who created images of God for you? And they don't even have to be positive ones, but just do you remember who it was that, you remember first thinking like taught you about who God is?
From the moments that I can go back in my mind to remember or have a memory, it was my parents. God was always present. We were Sunday school lesson, we were at church. My mother played the piano, my father was in the choir. His mother played the organ on Sunday, so we were always there. It was just kind of like it was an extra seat at the table. It was
Oh,
it was
wow.
always a part of our lives. I remember on Saturday evening, Dad getting out our Sunday school books and reading all of our lessons before we went to Sunday school the next day. Now we didn't have a lot of crosses up in the house. We didn't have a picture of Jesus, but it was a part. Just again, I keep thinking of another seat at our table, and there were three daughters and my mom and dad. So yeah, it has always been present. He has in our house.
Oh, that's really interesting. So what kind of church did you grow up going to?
Methodist.
Oh, so you are a
And I
lifelong
think we
Methodist.
And I think, yeah, and I really think that we were Methodist before, and then it became United Methodist. And I think that was a huge, big thing to us.
Ah,
I remember it when it became United Methodist. Didn't know what it meant, but it was a big deal at our church.
yeah, I think it was in the late 1960s that these different Methodist groups became the United Methodists. So you would have been old enough to have that memory?
Yeah, yes. We'll leave it at that. Yes, I would.
That's really cool. It's really cool. I mean, there's some few people who grew up Methodist that stay. Well, there's so few people that grow up any denomination that stay Christian, let alone like in their own denomination.
No,
That's
I,
really
I
cool.
don't think I've ever thought about that, but yeah, day
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Yeah, you are a rare breed with your lifelong Methodism. Do you remember like thinking back into childhood and like having experiences of God when you were a kid or even as an adult?
The experience, the first one that I really remember for me, where it was where I think the personal relationship, God was just with me and everything we did, but where I felt there was a personal connection was probably, I hate to say this, in the late 80s. I was going
Hmm.
through a tough time in my life. And I remember it went from just praying, doing my devotionals, going to church every Sunday, giving money. So where it went from a routine and a part of your life to where it was so personal. And I remember talking to God in a much more personal way and
Hmm.
feeling God enter me, and there
Wow.
was conversation, and he got me through that difficult time. Wasn't necessarily the answer that I wanted, but we had that discussion too. So at that time, Garth Brooks, do you remember the song Unanswered Prayers?
I know of
That
the song. Yeah.
yeah, so 80s, 90s right there. Garth Brooks, that song came out about he asked God, and he thanked God for the unanswered prayers. I remember telling somebody, I said, I don't know that he doesn't answer them. I think he just says no.
Mm,
And so that was the first time I was up in Chicago. And I
yeah.
really felt like from that point on, it was me and God going through things together. It became
I
more
think
real.
that's incredible. Like, I think in my experience that people go to God when they want something, and we all do, right? But then when
Right.
God doesn't give the answer we want, we think, well, that must have been fruitless or that, but it seems like you received an answer that you didn't prefer at the time, and you received it as an invitation to go deeper in your relationship with God.
Yes. I think
Wow.
maybe I wanted to understand it more because I kept telling him I could see the life that I wanted,
Mm,
and that's not the one that he was giving me. And I needed his help to see that. I needed to know what that life would be and how
mm,
I would be. And
yeah.
look at me now. This is what he got. This is what you get, Tom. Is it right here?
But I think there's something to that for like for everybody, whether it's our relation with God or a relation with other people. Like what we want is someone to be the image that we have of them in our mind. And we love that image, but we don't often love the person that they really are behind that image. And whether that's God or in other people. I mean, I think parents do that with kids all the time, right? We love the idea of the kids we want, not the kids we actually have. We love the
Right.
idea of the church we want, not the church we actually have. We love the idea of the God we want and the life that that God is going to give us, but we don't love the God who's actually there and sometimes says no to us.
Right. Absolutely.
So this was the late 1980s. Were you a young adult? Were you a college student?
Young adult, I was married at the time. I did one of those things where you got married. I got married immediately out of college
Mhm.
to it just, let's just say, I look back at it now, and now I know why my parents thought, no, don't do this.
Oh, okay.
I just did 9 years, but, and, helped form who I was.
Sure.
But I was living in Chicago. I'd been with FedEx, and we had moved around. I was up in Chicago at that time. And so I
Mm,
became single up there and then moved back to Memphis in 1992.
mm.
So, yeah, it
Yeah.
started
It,
my new direction.
it is interesting though. Like I know that a lot of times we could look back on things like that with regret or whatever, but I also hear in your voice and even the way you're just telling that like you grew as a person because of that.
Oh,
And that
huge.
that made you as frustrating as maybe those things are that we wish we could go back to our younger selves and just be like, no, don't do that, or that's a bad idea. There's something to be said for being able to look back at it and be like, I am who I am because of that as well.
I think there's shame in divorce. It was in my family. Just a lot of people didn't go through that. They
Yeah.
stuck with the marriages. And then for me personally now, it's two divorces. And
Mm.
so I think there's shame on that when I look back and just,
Mm.
but I have to got a lot of great things from it and learned from it, grew from it, and
Yeah.
went on and, had my son from it. So
Yeah.
yeah, but those are always tough to look back on.
Well, and especially the Christianized culture, particularly in the Bible Belt in the 1990s in particular, like divorce was such a scandalous thing to go through no matter what. Like you may have been a perfectly innocent party and like just getting divorced like kind of put a scarlet letter on you.
Well, and you grew up in Birmingham. I did in Birmingham and Atlanta. So, Bible Belt really, and nobody in the family had really gotten divorced and on both sides. So it
Yeah.
was, I may have been the second letter for somebody, but
Mm.
yeah.
Well, but it's so interesting too, because like sometimes I look back at some of those folks, I'm like, you've been married for 60 years, and I'm pretty sure you should not be together.
Yeah,
Like,
I think I'm a little bit happier and yeah, exactly.
yeah, I'm not sure you lived your best life staying together there. So, well,
Absolutely.
I like who you are, and I'm so glad to have gotten to get to know you over the last few years. Do you have somebody that you look back and it can be right now, but somebody that you would look at and say is like a spiritual role model to you?
Oh, absolutely. It's my mom. Definitely was my mother. There are two examples when I say this. One, every memory of my mother going to bed at night, she got on her knees by her bed and
Uh,
prayed. And I'm telling you,
wow.
from the time I lived in Birmingham up until 67.
Mhm.
And if I saw her, because my room was right across, that's where she was on her knees at night in Atlanta. Um, I lived there and there from when I was 10 until 18 years old. So, going to bed and stuff, I saw her there. And even later in life, when I would be traveling back and forth to go take care of mom and dad, and she's in her 80s, every night when I'd be putting her to bed and talking to her, she would get on the floor and pray. And
Wow.
I remember asking her one time, I said, Mom, he can hear you from wherever you are. And I said, it's difficult for you to get up and down, and you can just sit. And I said, why do you keep getting on your knees? And she said, she goes, what would you do if you saw the face of God? I said,
Mm.
I'm not really sure. And she said, wouldn't you drop to your knees in awe? And she goes, he created the world, he created people, she went on and on. And she said, wouldn't you be on your knees in front of him? And I
Wow.
said, yes, I would. And she said, well, that's where I'll be. And I get
Um,
teary-eyed thinking about it. It just,
yeah.
to the moment, it kind of reminded me of the Ruth Effner. I think you remember Ruth from our church,
Mhm.
but she was there to the day she died on her knees
Wow.
every night. So that
Wow.
was one. And then the other scenario, and I will try and get through this without getting emotional, and I'll try and make it short because you know how I like to
You
talk.
know how you just do what you got to do.
There were three daughters. One, I'm the baby. The middle one died. My sister Lynn died in 2001.
Mm.
And my oldest sister, Virginia, died in 2011. And around 2010, so it's just me up here, married with my child, and my mom and dad, and my sister and her husband. My sister was saying she wasn't feeling great. And next thing I know, she is diagnosed with ovarian cancer. In the middle of this, we are trying to move my parents from the home of over 40 years to independent living in Atlanta. So it's going through every single slide of a slideshow. You can imagine after 40, 50 years in a
Oh,
house,
yeah.
all the things that you have. So they're concentrating on that. And my sister is a Spitfire. She's 5 feet like me, but very quiet. She was a business person and kept things close to her vest, and that's who she was. Dynamic, but just a lot more introverted in that way. And so every time my parents would ask about her, she'd say she was fine. She was getting through it.
Mm.
She had her wig. She was having um, chemotherapy. She was having radiation. So she went in for her, I guess, a surgery about the same time that we were physically moving mom and dad. And so during those 6 months, she kept insisting she was okay. I'm up here realizing that she is not. And my mom and dad are just, I don't think they could put energy into that. I just think they thought she was fine and they believed her and took her at her word. They were
Yeah.
adjusting with a hard enough part of moving and changing their entire life. So Christmas comes up. My sister says, make it the best one you can, which tells me. So I knew I'm sitting up here. I've gone through another sister's death. I've just gone through my mother-in-law's the year before with pancreatic cancer. And I just knew what was going to happen. So I flew back home and I had taken months off, a leave off from FedEx because I knew what I was going to have to deal with, and that was helping her get through her cancer and
Mhm.
prepare and get my parents through. And they were still clueless, really, as to what
Mhm.
was going on. So I packed them up in the car and took them over to my sister. My mother's with her little walker, my dad, and I sat down and I said, you've got to tell them. I said, you have to tell mom and dad what's happening here. And my mom started, you're not dying, are you? And my sister said, yes, yes, I
Wow.
am. And as you can imagine, I'm trembling talking about it. It was so
Devastating.
upsetting for them. They're in their 80s. They've already lost one child. They had no clue. because she never shared much. They'd say she's in the hospital getting fluids. They had no idea what that meant. It
Yeah.
just, yeah. And it was just terrible that day. And the next day, my mother wakes up and she said, I want to go back and see her. And I said, okay. And I
Oh,
started telling her, I said, at this point of where she is in her journey, I just don't know that we need to really be upsetting her. One, who am I to ever tell my mother that with a child that's just told you they're dying?
yeah.
Um, but she said no. And she said she wanted to go.
Hmm.
Tom, she marched into that room with her walker and she sat down. There was not a tear in this woman's eyes. She was as peaceful and as calm. And she grabbed my sister's hand and she said, I have three questions to ask you. And she talked very Southern. And she said, do you believe in God? And my sister said, yes, she did. She said, do you believe God died? No, do you believe in Jesus? And she said, yes, I do. She said, do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for all of our sins? My sister said, yes. She grabbed her hand, touched her face, and smiled and said, then I will see you in heaven.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that there was not a tear in her eye.
Wow.
It was a straightforward message, and I've never seen faith exemplified better than that one moment.
Holy
And
cow.
she sat with my sister and talked to her, and that day was lovely. And my sister died a day and a half later.
Oh, that soon later.
Yes.
Wow.
I really think, and I've been around death enough, and I know you have, they're waiting for someone. They're waiting
Mm.
for that last acceptance or goodbye. And
Yeah.
I feel like having then being able to unburden herself and tell my parents
Yeah.
that allowed her to rest and move on.
Yeah.
But for her to sit there and ask those questions with such deep faith and conviction, that's her second child she had to
Yeah.
bury.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
What a
that's,
what a gift to both of them to be able to have that kind of intimate conversation at the end.
oh, and what a gift to me.
Well, I was going to ask that too. Like, you got to see all of that.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. Gift
And
to
I think,
you from both of them.
well, I mean, I saw a strong woman, but I saw a strong woman of faith. And
Yeah.
that's what has just, I think that has always been the vision for me when things are going down. You lean on that. And if you're
Yeah.
not leaning, then you know God will carry you. You know, if he's
Yeah.
not walking beside you, he's carrying you.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have learned to lean on that over and over, even when God did not give you what you might have preferred.
Oh, yes, there's so much more. Yeah. No, it's true. But I
Yeah.
had a wonderful example.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. I'm reminded of one of my favorite writers, Barbara Brown Taylor. She has this line, and I'm gonna totally butcher it, but I'll get the idea right, which is she said, every time I'm disappointed with God, with the answers that God gives me, I realize that it's another way of God showing me that God is not who I thought. And I want God to give me what I want. And when God doesn't, I realize that God is not a genie. And I want God to heal. And when God doesn't, I realize that God is not a doctor. And she goes through all these disappointments. She's like, what I realized at the end is that what I really have promised from God is not things or outcomes, but I'm promised divine presence. And that's something that is always there.
Yeah. You mentioned the healing. I remember when my other sister was sick, and it was Brad Gabriel. And he
Mm,
had come to my house and we were praying before I went because we knew it was not going to be good. And I said, what do I pray for? He said, pray for God to heal her. And so I came back. Well, she died. And I came back. I was so mad. I was so
mm,
mad. And when I saw Brad Gabriel, I said, you told me he would heal her. And I said, and he didn't. I said, she died. And he said, he healed her. He took her home.
mm,
And for
mm.
the first time, I thought, okay, definition's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was right. He did. He healed her. He took her home. And
Yeah.
yeah,
You learn then that I got to be more specific with God when what I want.
Yes, and every time I see Bradley Gabriel, I always tell him that. I'll see him in a few weeks and I'll let him know again.
We will have to make sure that we send this podcast episode to him so that he knows we were talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so Vicky, I find you to be an incredibly thoughtful, incredibly charismatic, and then also really detail oriented and driven person. And so I'm really interested to hear how you answer this next question, which is there a story from your life that you think sort of represents the essence of who Vicky Caryiannis is?
I think there are two.
Great.
There are two examples, and let me just mark it down so I don't get confused. One of them is, see, I'm already
Yeah,
getting
see,
very, I'm
this is what
marking it
this is what I
down.
was anticipating.
I think there's not, in the far as the detailed oriented and the minding your business, I think I am a very simple, is the word an oxymoron or a juxtapose where I'm really very simple, but at the same
Mm,
time, I'm complicated and have extremely many different levels. I
mm,
talk a lot. I like to talk, but I can sit and listen to somebody for hours and to
mm,
hear that that's what they need. I can mind your business, leave you alone. So I live my world kind of like that. I think I've gotten better at some of those things because of therapy. And I think just all the experiences I've gone through. I'm very process oriented. I
mm,
mean, you know that from, so
mhm.
how are we entering the church to what's the last thing they'll see as they leave? Who closes the doors?
Right.
All of that to just let it be and let's go with the flow.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what causes that. I think on the Enneagram, I think I'm a one, a little
Mm.
bit perfectionist, but I'm trying to be the other way a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that works out.
Yeah. Hey,
I do,
we all it's all there. All of it belongs.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm such a rule follower, but then other times I'm like, okay, let's have a blank piece of paper. Let's just go with that. I will stop in the desert if we are riding in Death Valley and there is a stop sign and there's not anybody for 300 miles. I'm stopping. It said to. I mean, I'm a rule follower. I think the word that when I think about how I want to be remembered, what I've told my son is strong and faithful. I think again, the example of my mom, in
Yeah.
2018, I think I absolutely hit rock bottom. It was a culmination of you just keep going in life. You know, the
Mm.
one sister that passed away when I got off the airplane, everybody's waiting for me because I had the gumption to say, hey, we don't want that casket. What are we doing here?
Right.
I get things done. I had gone through, so from about 2001, you know, there was something every year. Then with my sister dying, the next couple years, I was going back home to take care of mom and dad every single month. From
Yeah.
2011, I finally had to take the buyout from FedEx. It was just so much going back and forth because you could go for a weekend and you're there for, 2 weeks. The next year it's a separation. The next year it's a divorce. It's the next year the parents die within 6 weeks of each other. And then the next year Alexander went off to school.
That's a lot
And
of grief.
and that's what, when you and I have talked before, the way I look at all of that in 2018, that after he went off to school, that was just it. I just, that was it for me. I hit the bottom. And it was because I had kept going and going and going
Yeah.
and going, which you have to do as a mom, as a person, as a parent, a worker, or whatever. And I think about that cartoon where the rabbit runs through and the door closes and everybody chasing him just gets hit,
Mm.
as they
Yeah.
slam up against the door. And that's how I felt. I felt like every bit of that grief just hit. And I think it was a good 2 years. It was 2018, 19, and 20. And really and truly, I existed. I was quiet. I still made myself get up every day. I went to therapy. I did what I had to do. If it was seeing friends, I made myself do it. If it wasn't, I took that time and tried to listen to God more. But I got through it, and that's why I say He walked with me every day through that,
Mm.
or He carried me.
Yeah.
And I've never felt so hollow and so empty and so lonely.
Wow.
It was no mom, no dad, no sisters. no husband,
Yeah. And son
just,
moved away.
yeah. So very alone, and everything you had thought your life would be and what you worked for was gone.
Yeah.
You have to redefine and you have to ask God to help, lead
Wow.
you to what is my purpose now.
Yeah.
So that's why I mind your business, Tom.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And the churches, but it's that
How did you navigate your way through that? Like hitting rock bottom and then coming out?
I'm telling you,
Or have you? I mean, I don't you don't seem like you're at rock bottom, but I don't want to assume that
no,
you have. So
it's the most, and I think some frustrating parts is that people didn't expect it
yeah.
and they never ever saw anything with me. It's what they would tell me in the past when I would be down. So I started expressing it. I started saying when people would say, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm not well. I am
Yeah.
not doing well. I'm holding on." And I think it shocked people, as direct
Yeah.
as I am. I think it shocked them that I would say that.
Yeah.
Certainly shocked them when I put in for leave of absence, from work when I was working so
Right.
much to take care of family. I felt just so hollow. I
Mm,
can't I'm a visual person, so it's like a PowerPoint slide presentation going off in my head right now
right.
of how it was. It wasn't pretty. Friends would come, and we would just sit. And that's where
Yeah.
I've tried to learn the art of if somebody just needs you to be in the mud with them, you're just in that mud and the yuck with
Yeah.
them, and you sit there. Didn't need conversation. I may just have needed you to sit there.
Yeah.
Um, Again, a lot of therapy, a lot of reading, and a lot of, which is interesting, quiet time to just
Mm,
figure it out and to cry and to grieve and to try and hear God.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes there's so much going on with the TV and people talking and the phone and just so much information coming to you that you don't hear when he's speaking to you.
Yeah. It seems to
So
me almost sometimes that like our society is built around distracting us from feeling grief. That like we're allowed to feel any other emotion. We can feel rage or laughter or happiness, but we can't feel grief. It's like our society doesn't have a place for what to do with people who are grieving.
they don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. And I've told somebody and they'll say, it just takes time. I said, yes, it does. And I said,
Yeah.
we never, and I try and come back saying we never know how much time that is because
Right.
your time, Tom, may not be the same as my time.
Yeah.
If you have just been pushing it back and trying to move forward because you have to, it's going to hit you and it's going to
Yeah.
get you. And if you
Yeah.
don't deal with it, you're going to get slammed. And I think that's what happened. I just
Yeah.
literally got slammed.
Yeah. My therapist has this sheet of paper that has like feelings on it. So for people like me who don't like naturally just like know what I feel and there's this thing she asked me one time, at the end of one of our sessions, she was like, "How do you feel?" And I said, I was looking at the sheet and I said, I feel a lot of grief and I also feel some happiness. This is this weird contradictory feeling. And she goes, "Well, what's the feeling between those two things?" And there was this one word, right? And it was joy. And she said, like, joy is a mixture of happiness and grief, and those things that go together. And when we can't experience grief, we don't actually learn what true joy is either. We actually cut ourselves off from feeling the full range of things. But like you said, like it's just one thing after another with our phones and our work and all these other things. It inhibits us from actually feeling grief. And then it's no wonder that so few of us come out on the other end, like actually happy, joyful people. You can't be joyful when you don't know grief.
Well, and I think the other feeling that people don't want to talk about is that there's anger involved with
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
And one of the things that dawned on me during that time and still does, it still hits me is I'm angry at all those people for dying. I'm
Yeah.
angry. It,
Yeah.
it came out in my therapy. I'm angry at my sister who
Yeah.
didn't tell my parents early enough or insist because what happened, this is a therapy session for everybody at church, but
No, yeah, but I think this is real.
what
This is right
happens
on.
is that if you don't address that, it left a lot for me to
Yeah.
handle.
Yeah.
It left two parents that had no clue. It didn't bode well for my marriage, traveling down all the time. Got a
Yeah.
brother-in-law you're still handling. So it just is not her fault. She's going through cancer. But now I can see where some of that I was resentful or angry. So you're dealing with anger, grief, joy that they're in a better place. But yeah, it's tough, but that I would just say that God getting me through there. I mean,
Yeah.
if I didn't have him, I don't know. You gotta, my faith, it runs deep. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
I agree. I have found that in the people that I've lost, I feel anger toward them as well for various reasons, different reasons. And I don't know that I've had too many people talk about the anger that you feel toward people who you deeply love and loved, but at the same time, for whatever decisions they made or whatever, it's like there are these lingering things that were either unfinished or just they were the way they are and there was nothing to do about it, but you still feel anger about it. So I appreciate you naming that because I think you're right. I don't think we have much language for that in our society.
And people will be quick to say, well, you don't mean that. And I thought, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I
why
can
can't I
be,
mean
I'm
it?
not angry at that person. I'm angry at maybe the decision or how it came down and how it impacted me, you
And
know?
even if I am angry at that person, like that can be temporary. Like
Yeah.
that can be just what I feel in this moment. Like why does it? I do mean it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me
So
what I
grief
mean.
is real, people. That's what I can say. And you've got to address it.
Yeah. So after all that you have gone through and the ways you've learned to relate to God over the years, what would you say is like an image of God that comes to mind when you think about God?
You know what? If I go too deep down that spiral, I start questioning everything about my faith. And so was this real? And does it look like, is he just like like vapor? Is it just that? And that's
Right,
too
right.
much for my brain. It really is. You remember I went to Auburn. That's a lot to handle. So what I do, my true picture is it's not just a picture, it's sights and sounds, it's all of the senses. It's the
Mm,
dew on the trees when I used to walk at Shelby Farms in the morning at 7 a.m. And the dew on the grass. It's when I go to the beach and put my hand through the sands and feel all of those little pieces of individual grains of sand and know that's as many people in the world and that's how small my problem is as it's compared. It's the hearing sound of a little baby crying, the being born. It's when you see somebody run together and they've met at an airport and they're hugging. It's the picture of God for me is love and kindness.
mm.
So I get excited when I
Yeah,
see that.
yeah,
Somebody handing water, somebody holding a door, somebody getting somebody to laugh. And what I love about it is if you look at all those people, all the faces are different and we're all made in God's image. And that's the picture. It's just love and
yeah.
kindness that's being exhibited is my picture of God on earth.
I love it. Receiving creation as a gift of God that sort of mirrors who God is. And
Yeah.
that's incredible. So, last question. How long have you been at this Second
Uh,
Street Church across its various names?
I started in 1992.
Oh, okay. 1992. Right.
And
Hey,
go back to that time I was brought up. And when I moved here in 1992, the next thing you did is you found your church.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I came to First Methodist at that time. And there were two things about it. One, the faithful religious thing would be that when I walked in, I felt like that church needed me,
Mm,
and I knew that I needed that church. It was
wow.
just a feeling. I think it was struggling even then. I
Yeah,
think we're always struggling on that corner a little bit.
yeah,
Um, but I just felt like my work would make a difference
yeah.
at that church versus the churches that I had grown up in, which are very similar to many that are out in the suburbs. That's where I grew up, is that I could go and be present, but they probably wouldn't know,
Yeah,
you know, that my
yeah.
money would be different or that my volunteering for something really made a difference. Because if not, they had 300 other people. And in this
Right.
church, it does.
Yeah.
They needed me.
Every
And
person matters. Yeah.
every person matters. And I
Yeah.
really needed that church. So I felt a calling to come to First Methodist. The other part, Tom, is that I was told it was a big singles church. And I remember going and sitting in my third pew on the right and looking around and going, are they not here this Sunday? And then I kept telling people, I said, well, I hear it's a big single church. Everybody's telling me that. And finally, I told somebody, I said, well, it may be, but they're all widows and widowers, and they're all old. That's who the single people are. Now, Tom, I'm one of them. I'm one of the same. I'm that same age that half the people were in the church. I was told later on that it had been a English church and maybe they moved. I don't know if I was told that, but there were never really any single young people at that time.
Yeah, well, it's just a bunch of single elderly men.
Yes, and there again, I started laughing thinking I had become the people that I made fun of. Anyway, yeah.
Vicki,
So
I am so grateful for your time today. And I mean, I look forward to other people listening to this because I learned things about you I didn't know. And I know other people will. They get to see me every week and they get to see you every couple of weeks up there leading as a liturgist. And you always do such a great job. But I think there's a personal touch to this that felt really good today. So thank you.
thank you very much.
Waking or sleeping.